So if you would give me, from your experience, 3 must-dos for the unmanned entrepreneur who's going into this, and maybe 3 don't-dos, or try to avoid this. And you will probably get into this a bit in your PSAs and dealing with rolling out those videos in combination with the FAA, right? Mm-hmm. So what are your thoughts? And if you can't think of 3 right off the cuff, then what are some must-dos?
I think several would include following the 107 and being certain that you are not slipping under the system, but following the regulations and being careful to operate in areas and if you're going to be over people with permissions. I think that's absolute, because the largest question I get asked when I'm on site has to do with security, personal concerns of being able to see people doing things, whether it's on the street or in a building.
Privacy issues.
Privacy,
right.
Yeah. So I think privacy people should be very sensitive to, and not be flying it far away or without permissions. In addition to that, I think flying within point of view that is
visual line
of sight,
right.
VLOS, is also important, because until the next round of regulations comes about, it's important for people to stay close to it and to be connected and not fly in areas which potentially could be disastrous.
Which is a requirement by Part 107, is to stay within visual line of sight.
It is, but it doesn't keep occasional idiots from flying up into the clouds and doing other things like that. That is obviously super unsafe.
Because I'm flying through that same cloud at 250 knots in a jet.
Exactly.
And if that aircraft comes through my windscreen, that's going to be a bad day for everybody.
Very bad, and we're really trying to avoid that day if at all possible.
Right.
Another must-do would be to, I have to think about this.
That's okay. I know I'm springing this on you. So how about some don't-dos? So must-dos is knowing the regulation.
Yes.
So maybe some training, whether formal or non-formal.
Yes.
But knowing the regulation and abiding by it.
Correct.
Right? And staying within visual line of sight specifically is what you mentioned. So how about some don't-dos?
Don't-dos would be not setting up quickly and avoiding pre-checks, just like you do on a manned aircraft. There needs to be some pre-check. Batteries need to be checked, systems should be checked, and very often I see people just take off and fly. Certainly that's allowable at a recreational hobbyist site, but when you're doing commercial work, really everything needs to be double checked.
So that would imply to me having an SOP, standard operating procedure,
yes,
that includes checklists.
Yes.
Okay.
And another thing I would recommend that's a must-do if you're doing commercial work is always having an assistant, a safety or communications person who is watching out for erroneous things, like people coming to the site as you're landing, various low-flying birds that go by, occasional wires that maybe are not seen by the operator right away just because of the angle of the sun or what have you.
Right.
It's always good to have an extra set or 2 sets of eyes with you on set, even if the flight is 5 minutes.
Right, so a visual observer and maybe an additional assistant. It's nice to have a crew out there. People love this technology, especially small children, and they'll come up to you, "Hey, sir, are you flying that? Are you flying that?"
And they want to touch it.
And they want to touch it, and they want you to talk to them, and you'd love to, but you're busy flying this aircraft and maintaining safety. Right,
that is correct. Another must not do would be, let's see,
Anything from a business perspective. We've been talking about operations.
Yes.
Let's talk about the business perspective, because as you and I both know, running a business is harder than flying an aircraft quite often.
That is a must-do. Analyzing your business model and understanding what you should be charging and charging appropriately. I think that's probably the #1 misunderstood item out there, because too many operators are charging very little money and not
Right.
covering themselves appropriately, and certainly not in a business-like sense.
Covering themselves from an insurance perspective?
Altogether, insurance, operations, backup equipment. There's a lot of things that go into running a business, and
Right.
many don't get it right off the bat unless they've been in business before. And it's important for them to assemble all those annual costs, including insurance, of course,
Right.
and maintaining insurance, the appropriate insurance,
Right.
so that when they charge for a daily or hourly fee, it makes sense based on operations and profit.
Right.